Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Firemind's Full Circle Podcast. We are mixing things up a little bit this week as we have Ben Wheeler and Dan White are away from the business. So today it's myself, Mark Freeman. I'm the digital marketing generalist for Firemind, and I am joined by the lovely
Jason Golding.
So this episode's a bit different. I mean, in the past 2 episodes, we've had both Ben and Dan speaking about a lot of the activities that Firemind's been up to, a lot of the solutions and projects we're working on. Today, we're going to be taking a bit more of a, I want to say deep dive, but it's more kind of behind the scenes of a specific role, a specific person within the business. And today, as we've said, we have Jason Golding. So, Jason, let's kick things off and find out a little bit about you and who you are and what your role is in the business.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm Senior Solutions Architect here at Firemind, one of a few that we have on the team. I have been very delivery focused lately, but I generally live with projects from the introduction to the client and doing the pre-sales, supporting our sales team, putting a solution together, sculpting it, and then getting that signed off and knowing that we've hit the mark for the client, but then also seeing it through to the delivery process to make sure that we remain accountable and that we deliver what the customer is actually expecting and what they've asked for, and to assist the delivery team, our developers, our cloud engineers, data scientists, data engineers, to really understand what it is the client needs, what they want, and what they're expecting to get out of the work that they're trusting with us.
Nice. So anyone who's listening in right now will probably be able to tell Jason's got a bit of a Canadian accent going. So I think it'd be quite interesting to find out a little bit about your past, about how you kind of arrived, not just the UK, but in this kind of position, in this role for this business.
Yeah, no problem. So yes, I am Canadian by birth, but I am also British by birthright. Both my parents are from the Channel Islands, so I got over here fairly quickly and easily after sending the Queen 80 quid and getting my passport. But my background is largely systems and network administration and support. I've worked with a few companies throughout my career, mostly in Toronto. I had the opportunity to work with the Movember Foundation, some might know, for the Mustache Charity, supporting men's health. That was an exciting part of my career. And then a couple of years ago, while here working with Movember, I met a woman for my brief stint over here. We stayed in touch, and a couple of years later, I moved over to the UK for love. That was 2 months before the pandemic. Not the best time to make a career change or a change of home, but I managed to get a job. And while I was working that job, I had the opportunity to train as a solutions architect and skill up on AWS and become a solutions architect focused on AWS solutions. And at the time I was a generalist, jack of all trades, wearing many hats, and I thought it was a good time in my career to specialize. So I took that opportunity about 4 years ago now, and that journey has brought me to Firemind, where I'm actually loving the decision that I made those few years back.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's an interesting story, and it's definitely something that we've seen quite a bit of here in Firemind. We are, we do recruit from quite a broad spectrum. There's a lot of people here from lots of different areas all over the planet, and it definitely adds to the mix. It brings a lot of not just experience, but different diverse ways of looking at problems, looking at challenges, and I think that's something that really does kind of distinguish us as a leading consultancy. So I've got a few questions here. I don't want to run through them all, as I want it to be kind of quite natural. I want us to kind of flow through these, but I do want to first go a little bit for the dummies, or not so much the dummies, but people who aren't really used to understanding what a solutions architect actually does. Like, it sounds very fancy, but I want you to kind of break down a typical day. What is it that you do in your role? Who is it that you have to kind of work towards? What kind of challenges do you have? Just a little bit behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I say I'm always working towards the client, to be honest, and I'm not just like pitching to we're so great, but I am fairly customer obsessed, and I think regardless of who's paying my salary, at the end of the day, I'm accountable for the people who are paying for the work. So I'm always trying to understand the customer's needs. I'm trying to relate to them. I know they're a business and we're working with technology, but I try and see the people behind that, the people who have to use the technology, the people who are depending on the tools that we're building. They're the people that I feel most accountable towards, to be honest, because at the end of the day, regardless of how innovative or complex the solution I put together is, if it can't be used by the people who need it, then there's no real value to it. So that's where I kind of hold my focus, is delivering on that side. But as a solutions architect, my day to day is usually either supporting our delivery team to actually bring together a solution that's been sculpted and designed to make sure that we're hitting the mark for the customer. But on the pre-sales side, these are days when I have introductory calls with a customer or follow-up calls with a customer, where I support our sales team and our account managers who have engaged with the client. But I'm very much focused on who they are, what they need, how they're going to use it, and what technologies need to be brought together in order to make that happen. I often equate it to the title architect is fairly accurate. I compare it to building a building. You're putting up a large building. It always starts with the architect, figuring out what materials need to be used. How deep do we need to dig the foundation? What's the core infrastructure look like that's going to support all the exteriors? How do we get the aesthetic right on the solution so that it's not only functional but it's feature rich? And once I've sorted out that plan, I hand it off to the builders to actually make it happen.
Nice, yeah. So from what you've just described, then it seems like your role, it tends to be more focused on the beginning of a customer journey. So setting out those foundations, working out the materials, as you put it. How does your role kind of input as the project is kicked off? How do you kind of step back in and make sure that things are going as planned? Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, if things aren't going to plan, if you've had to pivot on a change because of some unforeseen, change in the way the project's been handled, how does your role then apply to that customer?
So that usually ends up falling in line with working with our delivery managers and our engagement managers, who are essentially doing the project oversight, and making sure that I'm involved to hear the technical side of things, whereas they're involved to make sure that meetings are scheduled and our resources are scheduled. We have the right team involved, the right people in place. I work alongside those people to make sure that we're achieving the goals that we outline in the initial proposal. And in addition, also looking at the conversations that are happening and making sure that the goals haven't shifted. We haven't moved the goalpost. We haven't introduced a whole bunch of new expectations, and make sure that we maintain an understanding of what it is that we are delivering. If expectations do shift, as they do, especially on a long project, you could get 6 months in and suddenly the client realizes, oh, by the way, we also need this other thing. We didn't know that. We need it now. Or we've had somebody new join the business and they're insisting on this one thing happening. Making sure that we capture what that is, how it fits into the larger picture of the project, and whether that's going to have an impact on scope that requires a shift in budget or timeline or what have you, to make sure that if the scope has changed, that the expectations remain aligned to what the outcome is expected to be.
Nice, yeah. So that seems like you have to be ready for challenges and not so much problems, but as you said, the things that customers are after can change depending on the flow of the work and what's been discovered. I mean, from the kind of more recent projects that you've been working on, have any of these challenges really kind of creeped in? Anything notable that kind of comes to your mind?
Challenges that have creeped in. Yes. Every project comes with its challenges. Really, the biggest challenge is making sure that enough of talking business here, the budget and the time that has been budgeted for is aligned to that we make sure. If every project needs planning, and you can try and cut back the planning and just say, like, no, let's just dive in, let's just start writing some code. But if you haven't taken the time to plan, those things that you didn't expect that do come up are harder to deal with when you're in the middle of the project. If you had taken that extra day or two to really dig in on the detail that's required to do thorough planning, you might have caught it ahead of time, and you might have been able to anticipate it and design for it, and make sure that you had the right resources in place. For instance, if you get to a certain point and it's like, oh, this database is actually more complex than we expected, we need a data engineer to assist this cloud engineer, but your data engineers are on another project. Then it becomes that lack of foresight, bites you in the butt a little bit. And so one of the bigger struggles is making sure that you've taken the appropriate amount of time to plan to make the execution easy.
That's it, yeah. Preparation, I think, really is the key to success for not just a lot of things in life, but especially with these kind of projects we work on with our customers. And I think that then kind of brings me to the next point is that, we as we kind of focus with AWS, we work with a wide range of customers from all sorts of industries. Are there any particular trends you're seeing at the moment in terms of project types? What's the big thing going on at the moment?
Absolutely. I don't even know if I need to say it. Gen AI. Everybody wants a Gen AI.
Gen AI.
Yeah, give me Jarvis is what I always say. Everybody wants that thing that's going to do their job for them without taking their job. But yeah, Gen AI. And what's interesting is, a lot of us are familiar with Gen AI. Maybe some of us have played around with AWS's Bedrock. The wider, more public thing is ChatGPT, of course. But everybody has expectations around Gen AI now. Now that it's become to the forefront of the public's awareness of what's possible, people are thinking big. They're thinking levels of automation that we couldn't consider before. And what's interesting is at Firemind, we've recently gone through a series of projects that were backed by AWS to a degree, and they were all proof of concepts. And you would think, okay, these are 22 projects. It's 22 versions of a chatbot that you can talk to. And that's it, just rinse and repeat. But it absolutely was not the case. Across those 22 projects, there were probably about 19 different types of use of generative AI, different use of language models. In one case, we had one project that was using vision models. We got another company that has 2 projects that are language focused. So it's been really fascinating. But the questions that clients are bringing to us about how they can use large language models, it's really fascinating to see how people are using their imagination and taking what they know of a basic, very basic kind of chatbot engagement, but then blowing that up to something much bigger, but also much more focused on what their business needs to achieve and helping their employees do their job better.
And how have you found the change then? Because it's one thing working with more traditional AWS services, but then all of a sudden you're working with Bedrock, you're working with large language models, you're looking at foundational models, you're looking at the latest releases of models that are able to add capabilities and add speed. How have you personally found that change?
It's been a steep learning curve. I'm not going to lie. It's moving at an incredible pace. If you'd asked me a year ago to describe large language models to you and generative AI, I was still learning myself. And I'm still learning. It's incredible how fast-paced it is. We've had projects where we've started, we've gotten, it's like a maybe 6-7 week timeline on the project, and we're 4 weeks in and we don't feel like we can achieve the goals. We're not seeing the accuracy and the numbers that we need to see from the language models in order to really make the project viable. And then AWS releases a new set of models that completely blow the ones we were testing out of the water, and now suddenly we went from a non-viable project to one that's absolutely crushing it and doing a brilliant job at hitting 95-98% levels of accuracy. So it's just constantly evolving, and the pace that it's evolving is almost unnerving because I don't have enough free time to read that many Medium articles or AWS documentation, but I heavily rely on my team. We've got some great data scientists here. I love working with them. I love thinking up my version of a solution, presenting it to them, and then hearing their different take on it, and then collaborating on what's actually going to work best for that specific use case for that business. And there's nothing I love more than giving my data scientists a challenge and then seeing like 2 days later what they turn around and come back with, because they blow my mind on how imaginative and creative they get
I mean,
using these models.
is that something that worries you though? Because like you just said, you can have a customer project that could have 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and within that time, there's so many changes, different models, different results. Is that not a concern that by the end of a project, 2 weeks after that date, there's something new, something better, something faster? How do you work with that challenge?
No, I'm not overly concerned about that because essentially we're setting up the framework and the infrastructure around the tools that are going to leverage the model. The model is just one component in the final tool. And we've had projects where, overall, this proof of concept, it proved not that viable. It really wasn't producing great results. But what we have delivered is this model testing environment. So in 3 weeks or 3 months, 6 months time, when the next range of models come in, you can use Bedrock, you can flip out the model that you're using, maybe make a few minor adjustments to your prompts, and then test those models. We've given you this model testing framework that you can then use. So I'm not too overly worried about that. And anything we deliver today, I know within 6 months or 12-month time is going to be that much performant and that much more accurate because you just swap out that language model and your accuracy, your speed, everything improves because you're using the most innovative, latest models without having to make a massive change to your infrastructure or your workflow.
Yeah, no, nice. And have you found that there's a bigger need nowadays for more like multilingual projects? Are there more chatbots and more functions that need to be available not just in English but in 5, 6, 7 of the key languages?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with one company right now that does exactly that, language training, and they have some unique challenges. They're trying to create training features in their platform that allow them to correct for mispronunciation and do this in multiple languages, and it is challenging. It's probably going to be less challenging in 12 months, but with the models that are available to us right now, there are some unique challenges because most of these bots have been designed to correct your language, to assume that it knows what you're talking about, even if you're not taking time to use the right spelling or punctuation. It picks up on what you're laying down and it responds to you, and you can query it, you can have that conversation with it. But when the point of it, the tool is to allow you to make mistakes, identify those mistakes, and then comment to you on the mistakes. It kind of goes against the grain of what these models have been trained not to do. It's just to kind of ignore the mistakes and move forward. So I don't know if I remember your question, but I think I nailed it.
You did, yeah. You did. Yeah, no, it was more just speaking around the need for, not just the core language being English for a lot of these chatbots or what have you, but the need for having the function of different languages and different availability to different demographics. So yeah, no, you think you've hit the answer there.
Yeah, and we work with other companies on that weren't language tools, but we're developing a language model backed pipeline for a German company, and nobody on our team speaks German, but we're able to build it and then flip the script on it and hand it over, and the customer can engage with that model in German and get back to us, and we help tune that appropriately. But it's actually kind of great that we can test the whole pipeline in English and then hand it to them, and they test the whole pipeline in German, and we see very similar results in terms of performance and accuracy.
Nice. So in regards to the large language models, what's kind of been the most exciting for you to use in the last few months? Is there any kind of that stand out? Because there are so many different types now and different versions. Is there anything that has particularly stood out to you in being, a bit like, wow, what is this? It's like worlds beyond what you've used previously.
In terms of generative AI,
yeah,
and models, it's been a whirlwind of projects, but with the vision models, the vision model ones are quite interesting. Going beyond the language models, the vision models where the inputs are images and it's an image and text prompt where you submit an image and text and you query about that image. It's really fascinating for analysis. It has some unique challenges, But that was one of the more fascinating ones, where you're taking this image analysis task that was traditionally done manually within this business, and you're essentially asking, you're asking a computer to look at this image and answer questions about what color is this, what type of object is that, are there people in this image, and flagging for things that you don't want in the image, so you can automate that process of flagging for content that you don't want on your website or within your catalog of imagery. So that's one of the more fascinating ones. We also have some projects coming up with companies that are actually using robotics. Two companies that are using robotics in the agriculture field. So image analysis and generative AI on the image side of things is really helpful, but also using the language models to make this technology accessible to people who aren't that tech savvy, who struggle maybe using their smartphone, let alone even understanding what a language model is. But we give them a tool where they can just ask questions about the animals on their farm, or the equipment that they're overseeing, or the production and the yield. You can just ask these questions, and they get using the language models and interpreting that and having that over top of a data lake, and having that the additional layers in there to produce results. It really enables some amazing technology being in the hands of the unsavvy.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that does tie me in quite nicely with my next question, is that there must be, not all the time, but a lot of the time we're working with customers and they don't have dedicated data scientists. They don't have people who are, savvy in the world of artificial intelligence. They're not used to the particular services. How challenging is it sometimes when it comes to the end of a project and you have to kind of hand over the instructions, the how-to books? Is that a challenge, or is that something that you found that a lot of customers, they're quite, I wouldn't say easy, but they find it quite, well, sometimes easy to understand and to actually facilitate and to update and to ask the right questions?
Yeah, I mean, it can go both ways. There are times where handing over a project is actually kind of sad, because they do have, a couple data scientists on the team, and they got us, they got cloud engineers. They know how to deploy and update, and they just want the documentation and the code, and they want to run with it. And that's a bit sad after you've made something, you've worked with your team to build something that you haven't built before, and or a version of something, the latest and greatest version of something that had been done previously, and you hand that over, and it's just kind of over. It's like
it's gone, it's done,
being broken up with. But also on the other side, it's an incredible honor to deliver something to a client. And I love that expression on some client's face when you actually show them the results and put it in their hands. I refer to it as handing over the keys sometimes. But just seeing the faces light up when they see it actually working with their data, giving them answers that are relevant to their business, that's exciting. And it's an honor to be able to deliver that and earn the respect and the trust to continue working with that client, to then take it not only from there, take them further, take them beyond their expectations. And once you've solved that one problem, it's like, okay, what other problems do you have? Throw them at me. Let me figure them out.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're getting near now to the final point for this episode, but there's two main questions. One more about the future and one more about your past. So I guess we'll start with the past. If you had some advice from your experience and your training that you wanted to hand to somebody who's looking to become, like you, a solutions architect. Now, it could be AWS focused, could be with another cloud provider. What kind of key, say 1 or 2 tips would you give this person to help them kind of ease into this field? Because it is very technical. It can be quite advanced. Any tips for these people?
Yeah, and I can actually answer that on both sides, I think, because there's the technical side, like regardless of what you do, whether you're a solutions architect or anything else, or a carpenter or a reflexologist, doesn't matter. Don't stop learning. Like, just don't stop learning. We live in an age now where the world is moving at a pace that nobody can keep up with. It's hard now for somebody to settle into a job in their early 20s and expect to ride that out until their 60s. So just don't stop learning. Life's way more interesting when you're challenging yourself and you're learning new things, especially if you're going to be in this type of field. If you stop learning, you are going to get just run over by, just swaths of university grads eager to outperform, but also lean into your strengths as well. I say don't stop learning, but I will admit I'm not the greatest coder. My background was largely in systems and network administration, so I know my way around Windows at the time. I could write some mean PowerShell scripts and stuff, but it wasn't really that relevant to the world of software and cloud development and helping people go cloud native. So I admit on my CV that my programming skills, my development skills are not my strongest, but what apparently I am decent at is translating this off with a customer. And I never would have expected that because I worked internally a lot. So I didn't have a lot of customer facing roles in previous companies that I worked for. And now that in the last 2 roles I've had working with customers, it's become very apparent that communicating the technical to the non-technical and being that translation layer between the client and the developers apparently is a strength that I have, and I'm leaning into it.
Yeah, no, it's something I've seen, and I've also, being a marketer for the company, I've seen a lot of the feedback that comes back from customers, and yeah, you're definitely good at, I think, making the difficult easier to consume is the way that I'd probably put it.
Oh
yeah. Stop it. So that's the first question. It's more about your past and kind of some tips. Next is about the future. What do you see, if you see anything happening within the field of solutioning and being an architect within the cloud space? Do you see anything on the horizon that's going to make your world completely different?
Yeah, everything we've been talking about with Gen AI. Like, honestly, I don't think anybody can fully appreciate where this field is going to go right now. It's almost scary at the pace that it's moving. You can hear just as many young cloud engineer, data scientists and developers talking about the way they're using the technology as you can find videos of philosophers and physicists talking about the potential that we're taking the direction we're taking humanity in, and AI being, the next version of being on this planet. And it depends on how far you want to take that. In the next 5-10 years, I expect, again, I'm going to have to keep learning because I'm fairly certain at a certain point, there's already tools out there, people trying to do it, basically do my job in a script, describe your problem, and I'll give you a production quality delivery plan.
I was actually going to say to you, you're not concerned that, it could be a month or a year from now, there could be a speech to text and somebody just says, I have XYZ problem. I'm looking for a cloud architecture that can solve this. I have this kind of budget in mind for monthly spends. Please create for me an architecture, and boom, 5 seconds later, it's there.
Already exist, man. They already exist. People are trying to do this, and I've played with some of them. The quality's not there. It can definitely give you a head start. And I going back to the advice question earlier, that's another thing. Don't fight against AI. Look at ways you can use it to make you better at the job that you have. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that are going to survive this evolution, is the people who embrace it and learn how to allow them to work smarter, more efficiently, more effectively. And my hope is that I can remove a lot of the writing that comes along with I spend a lot of time writing documents. It's ridiculous, like proposals, scope of works, documentation, proofreading, high-level design documents. There's a lot of writing, and I'm hoping that's where it can help and reduce that so that I can do the people part. I can do the one thing that machines hopefully aren't going to get that good at very quickly, and that's just dealing with the people and showing the people love and respect that they deserve when they're going through difficult project transition with their business, or just trying to get their boss to listen to the things they need to do their job better.
I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people out there still, I think, are of the mindset that, generative AI is there to replace human beings, when in actual fact, yeah, there will be times when an algorithm can do what a human previously could do faster and more efficiently, and it doesn't need annual leave, doesn't need to sleep, doesn't need to eat. But majority of the time, it's there, especially I think for our customers, to just make manual tasks automated, faster, and accurate, which then frees up those same people to do more interesting, more valuable things for for their business essentially. And I think that's what a lot of people they still think of it purely as it being like man against machine, when it's not. It's man working with machine. And hopefully that never changes and we don't get Skynet appearing.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's the future, and it's exciting to see kind of how it would generate and how it will transform not only your role as a solutions architect, but myself as a marketer. I mean, I've used generative AI many times now, not to create the work that I would do, but just to give me some different insights, some different ideas, different topics that perhaps I just wouldn't have thought about. I wouldn't have done the research and found it, or I could have done, but it might have taken me, say, 3 or 4 hours, whereas a couple of prompts and a couple of, well thought out ideas can actually, speed up the ideas and the brainstorming. You think, oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. I wouldn't have thought of it like that. So yeah, that's exciting times.
It is absolutely, yeah. And it's, time is money. That's the old saying, right? And that's usually what they're trying to avoid is spending the money by automating these tasks and stuff. But I think our economy is going to have to grow with the change as well, because we're going to have to continue appreciating people's time. If we've managed to offload people's time, those few waking hours you get every day between your nights of sleep, and we're going to continue putting value on that, we're going to have to adjust what we're willing to pay for, I think, and really look at what we value. If we can automate all the tasks that nobody wants to do, then how much are we willing to pay for the things we really value? And I think that's going to be a big part of it, seeing how the economy grows with this evolution.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think with that brings us to we're just over half an hour now. So thank you very much, Jason, for joining me into today's episode. For those of you who are watching on YouTube or via our website, we hope you enjoy the video. And as always, it's available to download via Podbean or Spotify or the Apple Podcast. So we hope to see you again in episode 4, which is actually coming up quite soon. And our 4th episode will feature our first guest speaker from Amazon Web Services as well. So be sure to check in early to mid-June for that episode. But until then, thank you very much for stopping by and listening or watching, and we'll talk to you soon.